everybody, and welcome to another Top 5 board gaming video. Today I'm going to be talking all about Kickstarter games that I regret missing. Before I really get started though, I would like to invite you, if you haven't done so already, to please take a look at all my various social media pages as well as my Patreon page. Over there you'll be able to interact with me in a bunch of different ways, including voting on new videos and all sorts of other cool stuff. Moving right along into the video though, Kickstarter, I have talked about it a lot on my channel. I've done videos entirely about it, just Kickstarter, and the fact is that it has drastically changed how we interact with game publishers and developers and designers, and how we get games, both video games and board games, and all of these kinds of things. That said, at least to my knowledge, there's nobody who can really back every single thing, even super popular games, and that's really where this video comes into play. For one reason or another, these are all the games that I really wanted to back, or I didn't even know about them, and then eventually I got to play them and I was like, wow, this is really cool. I wish I would have gotten this, or I wish I would have heard about it at some point. That said, I would love to hear what you guys have to say as always. Let me know, what are the ones that you regret missing, or are you just not really a Kickstarter person? Let me know any and all thoughts in the comments below. Again, you guys know I love to hear from you. That said, we're going to get started with my number 5. At number 5, I've got Viticulture Tuscany. This is a game that is a worker placement based off of making wine and building up your grapes and doing all sorts of cool stuff like that. It's a very well-made game. The mechanics work together quite seamlessly, and I was actually kind of surprised the first time I played it. But the fact is that I saw the Kickstarter and I was just like, because the fact is I really don't like worker placements, and that's why it's a little bit lower on this list. Worker placement is not my favorite mechanic, and on top of that, winemaking is not something that I really care too much about as a theme. But then when I finally got to play this game, I was like, wow, this is really cool. I love how they did this. And the fact is that it is available, but it's really expensive, plus you really need to have Tuscany to make it work very well. So it's unfortunate I don't have it. Maybe at some point I'll be able to get it, but it's not one that like sort of keeps me up at night, so to speak. That said, Viticulture Tuscany, my number 5. At number 4, I've got Vast. Vast is probably the most asymmetric board game that I have ever seen in my entire life. It is literally having different characters, all of which play completely differently. You've got different goals, you have different ways that you interact with the other players or the dungeon. You can even play as the dungeon itself. This is one that I remember breezing through the Kickstarter and I was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool, but it seemed a little bit too childish and cartoony for me. And the problem now is you really can't find it anywhere, and it's so frustrating because now I've played it and I'm like, wow, this is exactly the type of game that I like, and I really enjoyed it. And again, I regret not getting it when I had the chance, but the Kickstarter campaign itself just didn't strike me and have that light bulb moment of like, oh my god, I have to have this game. So it's unfortunate, but Vast is my number 4. At number 3, I've got Scythe. This is the only game on this list, I will tell you, that I actually own. And thankfully it got reprints and all that kind of stuff and got actual distributors, so it is a game that is available now, which is like, yay! But I remember very distinctly seeing the Kickstarter and being like, oh, I want to get this game so badly. But at the time, I just couldn't afford it, and I was so mad because the Kickstarter exclusives just drove me insane. And not having those, like the bigger board and all that kind of stuff, I'm just like, it's so frustrating. It's a wonderful game. It's an incredible gameplay experience. I even have like the VR edition with a tabletop simulator and all that cool stuff. It is a lot of fun to play. It's a very unique setting. You have some really unique mechanics within it, and I really love it, and I hate the fact that I missed it because I simply didn't have enough money. And darn me and my adult responsibilities. It's terrible and it's so frustrating. But either way, Scythe, I'm happy that I have it now. It's at least something, and that's why it's a little bit lower on this list, just because I'm like, yay, I still ended up getting it. But with all that, Scythe is my number 3. At number 2, I've got Zombicide, Black Plague. I have Zombicide. I have the regular one. I didn't back the Kickstarter for it, but I got it later on. The reason is because I thought it sounded really cool and people really seemed to enjoy it and all that. And then I played it and I was like, you know, it's okay. I mean, it's not great. It's not tremendous. I've never been super big on zombie games, but the progression was at least somewhat interesting, and I thought it was at least a reasonably well done game, but nothing to really write home about. And then Black Plague came up on Kickstarter, and because I had played the original one and not really liked it, I decided not to back the Black Plague one. But at the same time, it turns out that Black Plague fixed all of the problems that the original game had. So that means that I just missed out on all of these wonderful fixes that made the game so much better and so much more fun. And again, I hate myself for it because I read through the Kickstarter and I read that these things were changing. I was like, yeah, but can they really make that make sense? And part of the problem is I just don't have the disposable income to take risks like that. So I didn't really have too much of a choice. I was like, I gotta pass by it, but then I got to play Black Plague and I was just sort of like, God dang it. And I was just upset at myself because I knew that I had my shot, and just like with Scythe, I just sort of missed out. And it was not as upsetting as with Scythe, because at least I still got Scythe, but maybe at some point I'll get Black Plague. But at this time I'm just kind of like, at least I got to play it. But with all of that, Black Plague is my number 2. At number 1, I have the number 1 game on Kickstarter, Gloom Haven. I am so sad that I missed the Kickstarter for this. Like, I saw it and it kind of hit me like KDM, like Kingdom Death Monster, where I was like, this game is so big, it's so insane, I can't afford it. It sounds cool, it sounds like it's gonna be fun, but I just can't do it. And so help me, Gloom Haven is just about the most incredible gameplay experience that I have ever had. And I can't get it, because now at best you can get it for like 250 bucks. And I'm like, I couldn't afford it when it was like 150 on Kickstarter, and now it's even worse. But thankfully one of my gaming group buddies ended up getting a copy, and so we were able to play through it, and it's just so amazing. It gets all of the wonderful mechanics and theme that I love seeing in any game, whether it's a board game, a tabletop role-playing game, or a video game. You've got character progression, you've got a wonderful story behind it, you've got fun little quests that everybody can go on, you've got a little bit of asymmetric gameplay because you've got different character types that have different goals of all sorts, and it's just, it's just so frustrating that I missed out on it. But again, I simply didn't have the money, and that's really the biggest reason why I didn't do it. And so yeah, with all of that and all of the sadness, the number 1 game on Board Game Geek is also my number 1 most regretted Kickstarter that I missed, Gloom Haven. Well everybody, that's going to be it for me. I hope that you enjoyed this video on my top 5 Kickstarters that I most regret missing out on for one reason or another. Again, the vast majority of these were simply because I don't have the disposable income that some people do, so I can't afford to just like drop hundreds of dollars on some of these games, and I wish I could, I really do, but unfortunately I just can't, so I missed out on them, and hopefully at some point I'll be able to own them. And honestly, that's one of the things that I've talked a lot about it with my other Kickstarter videos about how frustrating it can be with, you know, if you miss out on it, is there any way to get it, and doing secondary price gouging and all of that kind of stuff. If you guys are interested, you can check out some of my other videos on it. But with that, again, I would love to hear what you guys have to say about this. What are some Kickstarters that you regret missing, and why? Why did you miss them, and why do you regret them? Did you get to play them? Did you get them on the secondary market ever? Let me know in the comments. You guys know I love hearing from you as always. But with that, thank you so very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I will see you next time.